Okay, I'm Ian Bennett. I work for Lotus Racing, Heikki Kovalainen's car. I'm an electrical support engineer. When the car is actually running, we can view data on screens, which basically you look at hydraulics, steering pressures, brakes, etc. The gearbox, make sure everything's working correctly, and hopefully be able to advise if there's any problems or anything that we can help out on the car. Normally before a race starts, I'm actually quite relaxed. The nerves are normally on Friday when the car hasn't run. You know, you're more, once you know the car's run and it's reliable, then the nerves tend to go away. But on a race day, you're normally quite calm until you go out on the grid, and then when you go onto the grid, you're thinking about all the things that you need to do. But it's reasonably calm. You know, we've been doing it quite a while now, so I'd like to say not too nervous. When we go to the grid, it's a bit of a race against time because the cars come through the pit lane. Once the cars come through the pit lane, you have to run to the grid to make sure you're there for when the car arrives. When the car arrives, we plug in. I'll get the data from the car. Basically, I need to look at the data, make sure everything's okay. Also, I need to make sure our Cosworth guys have a look at the data, make sure that's all okay. Once we've done that, basically the main aim is just to make sure there hasn't been any issues from when the car's left the garage to the grid. You know, you can often have a few problems that you need to iron out. Once we know that's okay, you'll have sort of 2 or 3 fire-ups on the grid to make sure everything's okay with the engine. At that point, I also make sure the steering wheel's ready to go for the driver. Got various switch positions and make sure that's okay for him. This is a Heikki Kovalainen steering wheel. You have 2 paddles on either side here. This one's for gear up, this one's for gear down. These 2 levers are for the clutch. Obviously you don't have 3 pedals in the car, there isn't room, so you have clutch levers instead. And also when you move to the front, you've got a whole host of buttons and dials. I'll try and take you through them. This one here is neutral. Basically when you're switching down through the gears, say you're going into a hairpin, you don't want to keep going down and all of a sudden find yourself in neutral, because when you put your foot on the accelerator to drive out of the corner, it's quite embarrassing when you haven't got any gears. So basically once you get into first gear, you need to press that to get into neutral. Next one down is PC, which means pit confirm. Basically if the engineer asks the driver to come in, often during practice or for a pit stop, he will press this button and it will actually acknowledge that he's heard that command, and it also gives me, allows me to know that the driver's coming in and forewarn the pit crew. Next one down is torque, which is obviously for the radio. It's quite an easy one. These 2 here, -10 and +1, basically we have a thing called defaults on the car. If there's a problem with any sensors, we can use a combination of these 2 buttons and acknowledge to actually tell the sensors to stop being looked at in the software. So it's quite good if there's a problem on the car, we can actually try and help the car carry on during a race. Next one then is SC, safety car. If there's a safety car on the circuit, it gives a lap which is provided by the FIA as a reference speed, and it ensures that the driver doesn't go any faster than that reference speed, because if we do, you can get penalised, so it's quite an important button. Obviously once the race starts, you can release that button and off you go again. Drink button, quite easy again, simple. Gives the driver a nice drink. Hopefully it's normally quite hot, but often they quite like it in the races. Moving to this side, pit limit button. Basically that's for the pit lane speed limiter. That limits the car anything between 60 and 100 kilometres an hour. And it also displays a rain light on the back of the car as the car comes down the pit lane to easily identify that that's working. Next one down is wing, which works in conjunction with this rotary switch here. On our cars we have an adjustable front wing, which is electronically controlled, and basically you can use this dial here to add increments normally of ½ a degree. So what the driver can do, he can switch it to any position on here, and when he's ready to actually get that change, he'll press wing. So just by moving the dial won't actually move the wing, you have to move the dial and the button there. Going down, we've already spoken about these 2. Reverse, very similar to neutral. Obviously you need to be sure, you definitely want to go into reverse, so you have to press and hold that for 3 seconds to get reverse gear. Next one down is bike point finder. Basically it's the same as when you're in your car. When you bring the clutch pedal up, it's to find the bike point. It's a very accurate way of doing that, and that plays quite a large part for the launches in the race. Moving through the rotary switches on here, you've got 3 here which control the differential, entry, mid and exit. That adjusts the torque loading on the diff. A lot of the times when you're out on the circuit, obviously the fuel load's decreasing, tyres are degrading, you know, you've got rubber on the circuit, the way the car handles is different. So the driver can use these, and also the engineers will say possibly to make a change on these. Moving down here, we've got the clutch position here. Obviously you get wear on the clutch, and there's different maps which are associated with this. So it's often one of the engineers will make a call and tell the driver to move to different positions. This here is a multi-function switch. We use it to use all different kinds of different parameters which we can change on the car. This is engine torque, tyres here, Basically, obviously, we've got different sorts of tyres on the car. When you're running a wet tyre, you'll move it into this area here, which will let the ECU know you've got a different size tyre on the car, and also that switches the rain light on. Last but not least, you've got these two little switches down here. When you switch these two up, it puts the car into launch mode, which is when we launch off the grid. So it's very important that the drivers do that, and that's probably one of the things you'll often hear on the radio is the last thing the driver comes to the grid. Just make sure their switches are up, otherwise they'll have a very bad start. As a young guy, always loved motorsport and obviously followed the JPS Lotus cars with a black and gold livery. And it's just very proud to work for a team like this. It's a great atmosphere and great environment, and it's very enjoyable. And you know, because I was here quite early on, you know, I feel that I've played a big part in it, and it's very proud, very proud.